Jari Madad to all the friends online. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday morning. Before we start our lecture today, I would like to request all friends to please stay on mute throughout the session. You are most welcome to share your lectures on the group or in the app in chat section. For last few weeks, we have been discussing the deeper understanding of our tariqah. In that same context, we started discussing dua, the deeper meaning of our dua, which we recite 3 times a day. Last week, we talked about third part. Hopefully, you all have received the recordings and you have listened to it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. So let me recite this Farman. Maulana Hazimam said, "My beloved spiritual children, I am happy to see that your knowledge since I was last there and your understanding of both the dua and other surahs of the Quran Sharif is much better. Much better. I would like you to go on improving your knowledge and your understanding of the dua and of those parts of Quran Sharif which are important to us in our everyday life, in our understanding of our faith." Another farman which Maulana Hazimam gave to us in Pune, November 22nd, 1967. Maula says, I quote, "It is important that in learning parts of the Quran, you must clearly understand the meaning. If you recite parts of the Quran, certain words must represent to you a concept." In this Farman, Maula Bapa is telling us to do 2 things. You must clearly understand the meaning. He is not saying translation. Dua or Quran is in Arabic language. Those Ismailis who speak and understand Arabic, that for this Farman would not be applied to them because they already understand the translation of it. Therefore, we need to see Imam's words. Imam is actually not saying translation. He is saying meaning. That means that there is translation and then there is meaning. So today we all have gathered here to understand the deeper meaning. We all know the translation. So our 4th part starts with verse 10, chapter 48. Innal lazina yubayunaka innama yubayun Allah yadullahi fawqa aydihim faman nakatha fa innama yankusu ala nafsihi waman awfa bima ahdihi alayhullah fasyutihi ajran azima. The translation is, indeed, those who pledge allegiance to you, they are actually pledging allegiance to Allah. The hand of Allah is over their hands. So he who breaks his word only breaks it against himself. And he who fulfills that which he has promised Allah, he will give him a great reward. Now in this verse, the most important word is bayya, which we need to understand. The word bayya is derived from word bay, which literally means buying and selling. Technically it means Mu'mins making a covenant with God through their prophet and his successor, that in order to attain the pleasures of God and salvation, they are pleased and ready to offer any kind of sacrifice of life and wealth. Further, in order to truly obey God, the Prophet, and the Ulil Amr. So to truly obey Amr, they are ready, they are happy to abandon unlawful desires. And that is the meaning of bay'ah. This word bay'ah has been mentioned in Quran in chapter 48 verse 10, which we are discussing, and also in chapter 48 verse 18 and chapter 60 verse 12. So the important part we are trying to understand is the word bay'ah or allegiance. It mentions hand of God. When a child is born to a smiley parent, they take that child to Jamaat Khana, to Mukhi Sahib or to Mukhiani Ma. On the behalf of the Imam, the Mukhi Kamadiya accept the child into Ismaili Tariqa, and parents, on the behalf of the child, submit that child into the allegiance of Imam. There are two parties, Mukhi Mukhianima and parents. And here I recall Sultan Muhammad Shah's Farman. Mawla says it is parents and the Mukhi who are responsible to teach that child the tariqa. It is not REC teachers. It is not other institutions of Jamaat. It is the parents and the Mukhi. Mawla makes them responsible to make sure that they learn the tariqa. And it all happens during the time of bay'ah, that this exchange, this buying or selling kind of contract is being happening in between parents and the Mukhi. Parents take that responsibility with happiness, with pleasure to teach the child tariqa. The child follows tariqa with blind faith, just following parents, whatever parents do, children do that. It is until later that the child learns whatever in REC. But the true and the deeper learning is with the free will. When an adult realizes that he is in the bay'at of Imam, he has given his allegiance to Imam, and he has to understand the logical reasons of him being in his tariqa, whatever he is doing, the rituals, whatever he is doing. Everything has a deeper meaning. Our religion, our tariqa is esoteric tariqa, it's a batni tariqa. It becomes our own responsibility to learn the deeper meaning of this tariqa. And that's how we all are here. Allah has mentioned his hand in the verse. Now we all know Allah is abstract nur. In Urdu it says the term is Noor-e Mujarrad, abstract nur. Allah doesn't have form, body. So how come Allah mentions his hand in this verse? Now when Allah mentions things like that, it becomes everlasting, imperishable, never disappears. For example, when he says book of Allah, robe of Allah, face of Allah, hand of Allah, all these are permanent, everlasting. Now how can it be the hand existed in the time of Prophet in the form of Prophet himself? Because the part clearly says, the verse clearly says that those who accept allegiance on the hand of Prophet is like giving allegiance to Allah. Here I recall our Pir Nasir Khusro. Now those who do not know about him, let me introduce briefly Pir Nasir Khusro to us. Pir Nasir Khusro, he was Hafiz al-Quran, he knew Bible, had command of Quranic literature, tafsir, knowledge of Sunnah and Hadith. You name it, he knew it all. He had also studied natural sciences, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, astrology, Greek philosophy. But he, while he would study this 48 by 10 verse, he would ask, where is this hand of Allah? Why don't I see today? And he documents this beautifully in his poetry. And he says, one day I hear in the Quran the verse of Bayya, in which God says, my hand is above their hands. Those companions who had done Bayat under the tree, the likes of Jafar, Miqdad, Salman, and Abu Zar, I asked, whereof that tree, that hand on which to pledge? Where should I seek that hand, that Bayat, and that group? They replied, the tree no longer exists, nor that hand, for that group has now dispersed, and that hand disappeared. All of them are the companions of the Prophet in paradise, singled out by that Bayat and chosen from among the people. Now he's documenting this in his poem when he was discussing it with his friends, the scholars there. That's the answer he was given. But he was not satisfied. He was of a belief that it cannot be just applied to that time when the Prophet Muhammad was there. Allah's command, Allah's verses, which are in the Quran, has to be true for all the time. He keeps seeking for the answer to this question. One day he sees this dream at the age of 40. One night I was approached in a dream by someone who cheated me. How long will you drink this brew that destroys human intellect? It's better to be sober, I responded. The sages have failed to find elixir to dry away the sorrows of the world. He said, never has drunkenness brought peace of mind. And only can one who leads people to, someone is on unmute, please. Can one who leads people to stupor be called a sage? Seek that which increases intellect and wisdom. I asked, where can I find such a thing? He replied, those who seek shall find. And I repeat, those who seek shall find. And then pointing in the direction of the Qibla, he fell silent. Pir Nasir Khusro packs up his things and follows his dreams and goes on this journey. He ends up at Cairo meeting Dar Fiddin al-Shirazi, the Hujjat of Jazira Fars. And there he learns about the Ismaili Tariqa. Until he was appointed as Hujjat, which is like Pir in Indo-Pak language, upon his first and last didar of the Imam Mustansir Billah. The reason I share this story is to share his struggles to this verse. Until he met the Imam and did his bayah on his hands, he was happy, he was satisfied that he found that tree, he found that hand in the form of the Imam, and then he climbed up the stages in the ranks and became the Pir. And now we all know that his books are the most renowned books on the Tawil of the Quran, written 1,000+ years ago. So now we know from this story that the Imam of the time is the one whose hand is being talked about. Why? Because after Nabuwwat, we have Imamat through the principle of Nurun Allah Nur. We have our Imam, Shah Karim al-Hussaini, Nur Maulana Shah Karim al-Hussaini Hazima, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. He is the embodied Noor, the Noor-e-Mujassam, the Noor which is encompassed in a body. Our tariqah is very logical. There is clear-cut answer for those who are believers. Doubts comes because there is lack of knowledge. That's why we all are seeking knowledge today. Knowledge gives us certainty, and certainty also comes in levels. And there are 3 levels of certainty. The first is certainty of knowledge, then certainty of I, and then the certainty of truth. So coming back to bayat, when we do bayat, we actually submit our child to the Imam of the time. We say to Maula Baba, Maula, our tan, man, dhan is yours. Everything which is ours, including this child, it is yours. Imam, he is so merciful, he says, I give this child to you as my amana. And take care of this child and teach him this tariqah. And now we are those children who have grown up, with our parents helping us learn our tariqah, and today with our free will we are asking questions. What does this mean? What does that mean? And that's okay. Alhamdulillah. Now, because of that bayah, it's like a contract. And it's so beautiful in Quran, chapter 9, verse 111, the first part, it says, indeed, Allah has purchased from the believers their lives and their properties. In exchange for that, they will have paradise. Now we keep this contract with Imam. We continue to sacrifice ourselves in whatever ways we like. It is up to us with free wills to elevate our ranks to go to the paradise. Now someone will ask, what do you mean paradise? For in Ismaili, the paradise is the Imam of the time. In other words, paradise is to be one with Imam, to be fanafillah with Imam, to merge with Imam, to annihilate with Imam. Thus, to act upon the true bayat is actually a final test in Islam for a moment to surrender to Imam of the time. Alhamdulillah, we all are in bayat. The blessed hand, which represents God, we have to understand that part too. That we need to remember that we are in this contract all the time. We are expected to be in true obedience. The hand of God represents the body. And someone, still is struggling and learning may ask why God talks about his body parts. Though we have mentioned Nur-e-Mujassam, but to affirm, to give you more content, to increase the belief through knowledge, give you certainty of knowledge, let us come to a saying of Maula Ali. Maula Ali says, I am the face of God in the heavens and the earth. I am the face of God in the heavens and the earth. This is another reference for us to see how the body is actually the Nur-e-Mujassam, the embodied Nur which is being talked about in the Quran. Now, Maula Ali has said that. Where does it say in Quran? Chapter 28, verse 88. Allah says, everything is perishable, everything, except his face. Now, who is his face? We know from Maula Ali's call, Maula Ali is saying that Mujassam, and we are so blessed to be in his bayat. So every day when we recite our dua and we reach to part 4, we are renewing our bayat. We are reminding our bayat. We are recalling our bayat, and we submit ourselves to the Imam of the time that Mawla, we give you our tan, man and dhan. We are in this contract, and Mawla has accepted this bayat in exchange of us being in his paradise, meaning to have this ability to elevate our ranks to be one with the Imam, not after dying, but while living, when we are living. It is possible to be one with Imam during lifetime. Mutu kabla anta mutu. So Alhamdulillah, here I would request Aziz sir to take over, please.
शुक्रनिल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह सुभानअल्लाह. बहुत बहुत नवाजिश नियामत साहिबा for a wonderful presentation of Surah 48 ayat 10 in our dua in the 4th part. तमाम साथियों को एक बार फिर या अली मदद. हम मौला ज़मान से दुआ करते हैं कि मौला हमें तौफीक, ताहीद, हिम्मत व यारी इनायत फरमा. Because without his help, we poor and Garib wa Nachis are not able to talk about his ilm, nor we can understand the tawilat within this ayat or within the dua. Inshallah, I will request all of the friends online to pray for this Garib and Nachis, so I may be able to say few words. With your help, inshallah. Tawfiq, Tahid, Himmat wa Yari. Nur Maulana Shah Kareemul Hussaini Hazir Imam. So today we are talking about the Dua part 4, and we heard from our previous speaker the historical event of Treaty of Hudaybiyah, and today we heard an event which had taken place 600 years after this pact, at the time of Pir Nasir Khusro. And when he was growing up, and when he was reading the Quran, and as he was a great scholar of the Quran, but one thing which was bothering him, and the reason I'm mentioning this again, because one way of learning the ayat and the Quran and our dua is to understand how does this ayat apply to us today. If we look at the dua and the ayat in the past, in the history, then it is for them, and it is the story of the past. ये हमारी बात नहीं हो रही अब, लेकिन मैं चाहता हूं कि ये आयत को हम अपने ऊपर अप्लाई करें. Because if we don't take this ayat personally on us, as P. Nasir Khusro has taken upon him, by saying what? How come the people of the time of Prophet Muhammad was able to have a living prophet a living hand of Allah, but today I do not have that hand on which I can take bayah. Can you imagine if all of the Muslimin today would take this ayat personally and not read this ayat as a history or part of the history in the past for some other people in some other time? Can you imagine what would happen? Because Quran is the book of guidance, and in the dua, when Imam has given us this ayat today, he is not teaching us history, but he is talking to us directly. He wants us to understand the meaning. How can this ayat apply to us today? How would this apply to my soul today? Because Ismaili Tariqa is a dynamic, living Tariqa, a present Tariqa, not a Tariqa of the past in the history. It's not. But definitely in 1968, Maulana Wapa himself has given instruction to Tariqa board, at that time Ismaili Association, in Karachi and then in Mumbai in same month, by saying that we must learn from the history, but do not get stuck in the past. Learn from the history. Remember that. Learn from the history. So what are we learning from this ayat and the history? So now we have two parts, two different historical background. One of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah at the time of Prophet Muhammad. Then we have another history at the time of Imam Muslim Sibrullah, the one, the Awal, the first, and event of Pir Nasir Khusro going to Cairo and becoming what? That is the part I would like to talk about. How can a non-Ismaili born person like Sayyidina Nasir Khusro, remember he was not Pir yet, but a scholar of the Quran, once he realized that Allah is Rahman and Rahim and merciful, and he is not unlucky person because he was born 600 years after the event of this ayat. Allah has to provide. Allah has to provide. And we will come to this Allah has to provide part in a minute. So what he did, he seek that hand. He went and looked for that hand of Allah, a physical hand of Allah. Because he understood Allah is Subhan, above all the attribution that we put on him. He's above all of that. Meaning, he is the Nur Mujarrad, abstract Nur, and the attribution does not apply to him, but to those who are with the Nur on this earth, amongst us, in the form of a body and a human. And at the time of Prophet Muhammad, of course, he was that embodied Nur, Nur-e Mujassam. So, look at this event. after talking to Sayyidina Fiddin Shirazi, let's say, because history doesn't tell us was he taking the knowledge from the Dai Sayyidina Fiddin Shirazi for 7 days, 10 days, 40 days. How long did he take the knowledge from him? But just for the sake of argument, let's say for a month. Let's just say for a month that he spoke to and took the knowledge from the Dai in Cairo at the door of Imam. And then he go to see, have a didar to meet the Imam of the time. Imam Muslim Sibla, the one. And he looks at the Imam for a second or two and they just fall in prostration. वो सिर्फ सिजदे में गिर जाता है. एक नजर इमाम को देखकर सजदे में गिर जाता है. Think of that for a second. जब हम इमाम के दीदार के लिए जाते हैं और हमारे पास 15 मिनट, आधा घंटा, कभी 1 घंटा, and I remember in 1986 we even had 8 hours of constant didar. But this Buzrug, within a second of the didar, falls in prostration, सजदे में गिर जाता है और ज़ारो कतार रोता है. And during that exercise of Giryazari, he purifies himself, number one, and increases his rank from being a mustajib, one who was seeking knowledge, all the way to the hujjat. And Imam bestows him the title of Hujjat-e Khurasan, and when he leaves the darbar, the court of the Imam, जब वहां से वो निकलता है तो वो एक मोमिन से एक पीर बन के निकलता है. Think about this, my friends, brother and sister on this line. Think about this. How many didar have we received during our lifetime? It is only due to Imam's mercy today that we are able to say that Imam has given us an honorary title of a Da'i. But he became the Hujjat-e Khurasan. And once he goes back home, he assigns 30 Da'is. 30 दाइयों को तैयार करते हैं और मुकर्रर करते हैं. That how he assigned and prepared 30 Da'is under him. And today, if we look at the Ismaili Jamaat, out of 12 and 15 million Ismailis all over the world today, the 80% are from the Dawat of Pir Nasir Khusro all over the greater Badakhshan. All over the greater Badakhshan. Now, what does that have to do with this dua part? So let's come back to our subject matter. And we are talking about the pact, the bayah between the murid and the murshid. So keep that story in mind and we will see how does this apply to us. Because we need to bring this ayat close to ourselves. how can a person in one single didar come and goes from the mustajib, a mu'min, all the way to become a pir? And it is due to this ayat. So let's come to this ayat. We already know the ayat. So there are a few things that we're going to pinpoint in this ayat. One, जो माइदा है, जो बैया है, जो allegiance है, it's a two-way pact. It's not a one-way. It's a two-way pact. एक मोमिन unconditionally give his allegiance to the Imam al-Zaman. And since we already understand, the Imam of the time is the hand of Allah on us. So we are not going to go into that detail. But there is a two-way pact. There are two parties to this pact. Two parties. One is followers, mu'mineen. And if you look at this one, those who believe. Now who does not believe, it doesn't matter. But one who believes, then they give their allegiance to the Imam al-Zaman. In return, Imam also promised to hold their hand. And to do what? Hold their hand, take them to the right path, guide them on the Sirat al-Mustaqim, and also be there with them on the day of Qiyamah. That is the pact. Two-way pact. And what are we promising? Until the day of Qiyamah, we will only and only obey the farman of the Imam, and we will obey in the way Imam want us to obey, not the way I want to follow. I'm not going to say we, because you guys are following perfectly. I'm just talking about this Garib and poor. Not the way I want to follow, the way Imam want us to follow. In 1996, in London, Mullah Bapa had given a farman, and I'm going to just mention this one single line. Follow your religion with conviction, not with convenience. माफी के साथ, जब हमारे लिए कन्वीनियंट होता है तो हम इमाम के फरमान को फॉलो करते हैं. जब हमारे लिए कन्वीनियंट नहीं होता है तो हम फॉलो नहीं करते हैं. But Imam said, no, you have promised him. There is a bayah, there is the oath of allegiance to him. We will follow the Imam in the way he wants us to follow, not when it's convenient for us. And that is what we are saying in this ayat. And then if we do, then Imam's hand is on our shoulder individually, on all of our shoulder. हम तमाम के ऊपर खुदा का हाथ है, यानी कि इमाम का हाथ है. और जब हम बैया लेते हैं तो उस वक्त इमाम हमारे हाथों पर हाथ रखता है और वादा करता है, वही वादा जो हम उससे करते हैं कि we will follow you and never leave you. He will say, I will guide you and I will never leave you. Two-way pact. माइदा. इसके बाद दो और चीजों को इस आयत से हम समझते हैं. दो चीजों को उठाते हैं. One is कि ये तुम्हारी रूहों के लिए फायदामंद है. The first one, it is for your soul, meaning in this oath of allegiance there are three things, but especially our soul. Yes, Imam do guide us physically, Imam do guide us spiritually, Imam do guide us intellectually. But if you go to the last word of this ayat, you will learn something that is more important than anything else in this ayat. That if you keep your pact with the Imam, he will give you Ajre Azim. Alag alag, Ajran Azim, Ajre Azim, meaning the great reward. Until we understand what is the great reward, we will not be able to understand this ayat. Because ayat on the top is about a pact which we all understand because we all have done a bayat. Yes, we were a little baby, we don't remember that, but we all know about it. And we also understand the bayat is between murid and murshid. And we understand we're not supposed to break the bayah. And today we understand these bayah are on three levels. So let's come to the final punchline, Ajre Azim. What is the reward? What are the rewards? At what level is the reward? If one only wish and ask for reward on the physical level, then I would think that is our short sight. Very, very temporary thing. Why would we ask for something which is temporary, which is physical, and as soon we die, the reward is over? If we're asking for money, a seat, a name, a status, we all remember one of the Africa's Farman, where Imam said, those people who run after the titles, and Imam uses the word, very stupid. Do not ask for something which is temporary. And if you are the people with the knowledge and the wisdom and the higher understanding, what would you ask for? What reward are you wishing for? How about we say, Ya Mola, if we stay with you in the way you want us to follow you, then give us the Ajr Azim, the great reward of the intellect. Of the intellect. What is the reward of the intellect? We all remember there are two kinds of knowledge, Kitabi ilm or Atai ilm. Kitabi ilm, the book knowledge. Atai ilm, given knowledge. Because we are asking for a great reward, why not ask for the Atai ilm? The knowledge of the Imam, the recognition of the Imam, the nur of the Imam at the highest level. And if we have the reward of the intellect, then with that we can take care of our soul and our physical body and life. But if we only have physical reward, physical reward cannot take care of our soul nor of our intellect. So what would be a wise thing to do? What reward we should seek? The reward at the highest level, at the intellect level. एंड इसीलिए यहां पर कहा गया कि जो रूह ये नहीं करती है, द सोल विच ब्रेक्स द ओथ, इट ब्रेक्स फॉर इटसेल्फ, दैट द ग्रेट लॉस ऑफ द सोल, ग्रेट लॉस ऑफ द सोल. लेकिन अगर हमारे पास अजर अजीम है, एंड इफ वी अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट अजर अजीम इज, then we will ask for and we will have a goal. And that goal is to do what? To follow the oath of allegiance to the Imam as Imam want us to follow, not as I want to follow for my convenience. So the total understanding of the Allah, Rasul, and the hand of Allah on us. Nyama Sahaba had given us few different Quranic references and Farameen. But if you want to study and understand who is the hand or who is the name or who is Allah today? Where is Allah today? Meaning, where is Allah's didar? Where is Allah's hand? Where is Allah's nur? And where is Allah's rasi? The rope of Allah. Where is it? So who are the beautiful names of Allah? Surah 7, ayat 180 talks about that. They call on me with my beautiful names. Then Allah said, I'm above all that. First he said, call me with my beautiful names. Then he said, I'm above all this attribution. Because he is above all else. So whatever we call him, he is above that. Because these attributions, the face of Allah, the rope of Allah, the hand of Allah is Imam-e-Zaman today. But when we are talking about the Nur of Allah, then that Nur is Nur-e-Mujarrad, the abstract, unseen, unreachable, ununderstandable, uncomprehensible. He is above all. So at the level of Nur, he is above all. At the level of Nur-e-Mujassam, embodied Nur, all the attributions are belong to him. So I believe we should stop here, even though we could go further in this part, but we can stop here for a minute. If friends want us to finish this part today, we could, or we can come back next Sunday and continue with this part. Because today, the concept of bringing and taking this ayah seriously and close to us, if nothing else you will remember, this dua is for you and me. This ayat applies to you and me, and this ayat applies to you today's time, not yesterday. It's not a history that Allah is teaching, but it is a guidance for us today in 2020, today, not yesterday. So let me stop here. G.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. So I'm looking at questions. I got one of the comment. It says that we can't absorb anymore, and I think I agree. 45 minutes is the extent. Alhamdulillah. So we'll continue next time. I have received one question. Let me see. It says the following is the excerpt from Pir Nasir Khusro, Knowledge in Liberation. I just needed your help to understand it. Tanzil means to make the subtle into the dense, and Tawil means to make the dense into the subtle and take things back to its origin. Beautiful question, Ali. Would you like to elaborate on it, Aziz sir?
G. So on this line, we can only take a minute or two to talk about this, but then if you like, we can talk on side and maybe even write something for you if you need or like. So, tanzil, the word tanzil, coming down of something, यानी कि जो ऊपर है वो नीचे आता है. The tanzil word zil से आया है कि how something from its origin comes down to a form, a physical form, a written form, a speaking form. And the example of that is that when a teacher is teaching, when Imam is giving a farman, when a Pir is giving a ginan. So let's take the example of the ginan. So when Pir is giving a ginan or writing a ginan for the murid or the followers, what he is doing, he has taken his spiritual enlightenment, the original ilme laduni. Ilme laduni, atai ilm, the given spiritual knowledge. And then he put some water into it, soften up that knowledge a little bit. He makes it a chewable, absorbable for the listener. And then he brings it down and give to the followers in the form they could understand and digest. Now, then it is Imam's function as the master of the Tawil. So what he does, he takes the same knowledge and he takes it back into his origin, which we call Tawil or the batin of the words and the talim. So talim is the tanzil and the tawil is its origin. Last example, the example of a seed and a tree. The seed is origin, the tree is its tanzil, and then the fruit on the tree is again its tawil and the origin. So there are two origin. Original in the beginning, in the seed. Tanzil is the tree, the trunk, the branches, the leaves, and all of that. Then fruit and the seed in the fruit is again is origin, the tawil, taking it back. So what does it mean? That we need to understand the tanzil and tawil in a circle. Because if you don't have a complete circle, and if you think of a linear line, then origin is on the left side and tawil is on the right side, and there is no connection. But if you take it in a circle, in the example of a tree, then the origin, the tanzil, and the tawil is in a circle, and it goes back to it again and again. G.
So in the same context, I think there are two alis. Another Ali says that there seemed to be an equation between Noor and he who is above else. And you've already answered that question that it's a circle. So when someone tries to look at it separately in pieces, it has to be gradually learned through ilmul yaqeen, certainty of knowledge. And as I said, the way he explained that it's in the circle. So it's a continued path to keep walking to be able to grasp all the concepts. Aziz sir, if you would like to elaborate on it.
Ji.
The other Ali says, by the way, that he understood the explanation. So thank you for that. Ali Badruddin is asking that the Noor and the Noor which is above else, is it the same or what?
Ji. The reason Imam uses this word above else, this is the vocabulary that Imam uses. So when Imam is giving us a farman, he is speaking to us as our spiritual mother, the rank of the Peer within the Imam. And he is referring to his Noor, which is above all else. So Imam holds two ranks at a time. In this time of Qiyamah today, he has two ranks, the rank of Piratan and rank of Imamat. And they are both combined in a living Imam. So when he's saying Inshallah, or when he say the Noor is above all else, he's referring to the Noor-e-Ilahi in him in simple language. Okay, I'm not saying this is the substitute of what you're asking. That Imam holds two rank, the Nafse-Kul, the universal soul, and Akle-Kul, the universal intellect. When he's speaking to us, he's speaking to us with Nafse-Kul, universal soul, and he's referring to within him the Akle-Kul, the universal intellect. Ji.
SubhanAllah, SubhanAllah. Beautiful explanation. I don't see any more question. I would like to encourage all the participants, please, if you later think of any question related to dua, lectures previously covered, or today's lecture, feel free to ask questions because we are here to serve the Jamaat, and with your prayers, we would like to continue to do this. It is Imam's knowledge, and we are so grateful for this khidmat and for you all that you have joined us on this Sunday morning. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate. We would like to thank Aziz sir too for his time and knowledge, Nazrana, and all the participants, organizers who help us, and the friends who have been posting references as we speak. So this group is unique in that way because last time somebody said, can you share the slides? It is opportunity for listeners to even share references, and our two friends have been doing that consistently. As we speak, they share all the references. So kudos to those who have been doing that. We truly appreciate everybody's collaboration, participation, questioning, and interest. May Allah bless all of us with His true knowledge and help us in elevating our ranks. Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Thank you so much, friends.
Ya Ali Madad, Ya Ali Madad.